My name is Isabelle McConville, and I am a bookseller and associate producer here at Barnes & Noble, and I am so excited to be here with Chloe Michelle Howarth, author of Sunburn, one of my personal favorite books, and most recently, Heap Earth Upon It. Chloe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited too. This book was so great. I loved it. I haven't been able to stop talking about it with everyone I know.
Oh, wow.
Um, So we're taping this just a few days before the book comes out. So how are you feeling and what are your days looking like right now?
I'm so excited. So it came out in Ireland and the UK back in October. And knowing that all the US readers have had to wait this extra bit of time, it makes it exciting because I get like a whole extra release. Um, but yeah, it's so funny. Like I get a lot of TikTok comments from people in the US like, when can I have this book? And I'm like, it's gonna be soon, it's gonna be soon. So I'm just so excited for everyone to like have their hands on it.
Me too. I'm so excited to get this into people's hands. It's just such a great story. Speaking of the story, do you mind setting up the actual story of the new novel?
Yeah, of course. So it's about four siblings who we find out are orphaned and they travel overnight to a new town under quite mysterious circumstances and try to make a new life for themselves there. And throughout the course of the book, you realize maybe their motives aren't all they seem. Maybe there's a lot more to their move than they let on. And it's really just about them trying to make new lives for themselves and seeing if they can leave the past in the past or if that's actually possible for people like these.
And it's fun to go on this journey with them as they figure that out. Do you remember the first spark that really ignited this story for you when you were writing it?
I think it was a few things. I was quite interested in looking at sibling dynamics, um, just because everyone who I know has siblings seems to have different relationships to their siblings. It's not like a copy paste thing. I have two brothers and we get on great, but then I know some people who, one minute they're fighting, next minute they're best friends. Some people don't talk to their siblings at all. Like it's just so varied. But I think it's always kind of an intense connection, regardless of like how it's manifesting itself. And so I just wanted to explore that and see how it would pan out in a very fractured family who have an awful lot of trauma. I wanted to see what those siblings would look like. And also, I'm quite obsessed with like the Irish Gothic, and I wanted to look into that and inhabit that world for a while. So it's set in the 60s in January, February, so it's like very quiet, very grey, very cold weather all the time. And it's quite spooky. I think after Sunburn, I was in the mood to do something a bit more spooky and dark.
I can see how you got there too because it has one of my all-time favorite hallmarkers of gothic stories, which is just this crumbling. In this story, instead of a castle, it's a cottage, but all the
Yeah.
same. I mean, I think Jack at one point says it's run down for sure in the beginning of the novel. Can you talk a little bit more about building out that setting and really leaning into the gothic?
Yeah, I mean, even with the cottage that they're living in, I wanted it to feel like it would have a smell of dust when you walked in and it would be impossible to heat. One of those homes that's just maybe not meant to be lived in. I wanted it to feel like it was repelling the human life that came into it. And the town itself, it's like a very small seaside town, very close-knit community. And for me, creating that setting was very much about paying attention to things like the weather, the temperature, the color of the sky, the smell of the air. I don't know, sometimes, when you go to fishing towns, you can like smell the salty, fishy ocean. And for me, that's a very intense odor. So I was trying to basically get that down on the page. And yeah, I wanted it to be like a welcoming enough environment that the siblings would feel compelled to stay and try and make their lives work there, but not so welcoming that that is an easy feat for them or that they ever really feel like they've cracked it.
And Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I grew up in Florida personally, so I'm a bit used to that like fishy,
Yeah.
salty air. So when I moved to New York, I was like, where?
Where's the
Where's the
bay? Where's
ocean?
the salt?
But I love this setting for the book. I wonder if you can talk to me a little bit about the kind of research that you did into the setting. I can only imagine that it was a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it came from where I'm from. I'm from a
Mm.
very small seaside village in Ireland. And an awful lot of the buildings that are there, like obviously would have been there in the 60s. And it was just things like seeing pictures of what the town looked like then versus what it looks like now. And hearing stories of like my mom grew up there in the 70s. So like hearing, what she had to say, and then just stepping that bit further back. We also
Mm.
have an amazing resource if anyone's interested in like Irish history. It's called the RTE Archive. So
Okay.
RTE is our national broadcaster, and they have a fantastic archive that's free to access on the internet, and it has so much footage of like everything they've broadcast since they started broadcasting.
Oh,
So I got
wow.
to watch like so much clips of like television and the news and like on the street interviews with people from that era, which was like priceless information. Like it was literally just what were people interested on this day in 1965. It was like I don't think I could have written the book in the way I did without that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I've probably seen absolutely everything that the RTE archive has from the 60s at this point.
That sounds like it made it a very immersive experience when you were writing it.
Yeah, yeah, it was, but it was good. Like it was a nice I think because it's a very specific atmosphere. Like I'm living in a city in England now called Brighton, which is like it's really vibrant. It is by the sea, but
Hmm.
that's about it, like in as far as having things in common with the town that I created for this book. So every time I opened the laptop, I had to kind of tell myself, like, you're going to the village now. You're in the village. Like this world doesn't exist. I really had to put myself there.
And so, like you were saying before, this book is pretty different from Sunburn, but there are also a lot of similarities. They're both studies of their time periods and place. Both have lush prose and characters with deep interiority. What was it like to transition from that world of Sunburn into this new book when you were writing it?
I mean, in ways, it was a bit nerve-wracking because, like, I know Sunburn inside and out. And I think a part of me would have been very comfortable to just continue to write
Mm.
versions of that story, but it wouldn't have been very fulfilling, I don't think. So I was ready to do something different, and I thought the only way to do this is to literally do kind of the opposite. So I started with the opposite color palette because the Sunburn color palette is very obvious. It's like sunset colors, gold, red, everything. Whereas with Heap Earth Upon It, I was like, okay, January, drizzle, gray, purple, color like lightning strikes, things like that. Like that started me off with it.
Mm.
Um, and from there, I mean, part of it was just seeing if I was able to do anything different. If I was like, maybe I'm a one-trick pony, maybe I'm not. Like that's how I found out. Um, but one thing that was quite nice for me was like, you're right, there are similarities, especially in the prose and the way it's written. And it was nice for me to figure out like what am I leaving behind in Sunburn and what's going to come with me into Heap Earth Upon It. And it
Mm.
made me realize like maybe what my style is as a writer. Because if I'd only written one book up to that point, so I was like, well, who knows what is unique to this and what is something I'll continue to do. So yeah, it was quite. I think that was one of my favorite things I got out of it. I was like, I have confidence now that I have a style.
That's a great thing to have. I would love to dig into the characters in this book. The siblings are just such an incredible group. And so the first character we meet in the book is Jack. We
Yeah.
read from his perspective and learn that he's learning to live with all this all-encompassing grief. He and his siblings moved to a new town, like you said, and he's struggling with the change, all while internally loathing his siblings at times, and clinging to his baby sister Peggy. Can you talk to me about starting with Jack and how you really found his voice as a character?
Yeah, I think I probably had the nicest time with Jack, and I
Mm.
also had like the biggest journey with Jack. When I first started writing it, he's a lovely character. He's a very like I think if you were to meet him in real life, he's genuinely a nice man and he's caring and he's empathetic and he wants the best for people around him.
Hmm.
But because he's been through so much, when I first started writing him, he was very angry, very bitter, and really not the nicest person at all. And so the more I wrote him and the more like explored what his personality was, I was like, actually, he kind of has to have a heart of gold because, the reader has to sympathize with him because he's had so much happen to him. So yeah, I loved writing him. He's a little bit like Martin from Sunburn in ways,
Yeah.
like that kind of very nice, very gentle, caring man that I seem to keep creating out of thin air. But yeah, I really ended up having a nice time writing him. Some at times I was like, I don't know if I have a favorite character, but at times he definitely was my favorite.
Did you always know you wanted to start the book with him?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I always thought it probably would be him,
Hmm.
but I tried out everyone starting it. Like
Okay.
everyone had their say, each of the siblings at least. But I just thought, without any spoilers,
Hmm.
his reasons for leaving are probably some of the more interesting reasons, and his feelings about leaving his hometown, like he needs to go and move on and move away, but he really doesn't want to. And it's that kind of push pull that you see with
Yeah.
him throughout the book. So I just thought really he's the best start. Like he sets the tone, I think.
I completely agree. I loved seeing them roll up into this new town from Jack's eyes, through his perspective, while he's also observing his other siblings and how they're
Mhm.
acting. I mean, at one point he says that, or he thinks to himself, Tom looks like a politician and he's greeting and yelling out at everyone that they pass, shaking hands. Excuse me. When we're in Tom's perspective and he's sitting with men at a pub, he actually thinks to himself, whatever these men say, I will take on as my own opinion, just until we're settled and they like us. Then I'll see about speaking my mind. I thought that was such a great line that really all encompasses Tom. I wonder if you can talk to me a little bit about him and his relationship to his siblings.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the opposite of Jack. I
Yeah.
think I was really trying to explore like two different ends of masculinity.
Hmm.
Um, Tom is he's quite a hard character. He's quite stubborn. He's the oldest of the siblings, and so he certainly feels responsible for them. And he feels like, I'm the man of the house. I'm essentially the father of the family now. It's up to me to make things work for us. So he puts himself under an awful lot of pressure. However, he also, I think, really relishes the idea that he will be the one to make things work and that maybe his siblings won't be able to do it. But there is a softness to him as well. I mean, he comes across quite hard, but he really has this quite desperate need to be loved.
Hmm.
And I think if someone would just put their arm around Tom and be like, I really love you, it's okay, you're going to be okay, then maybe he would melt a little bit. But yeah, just given the setting, like that was never gonna happen for him.
Yeah.
And so he's become quite jaded, I think. But there's a real softness there if you're willing to see past his bad attitude.
Well, that's what I really love about his characters. Not everything is so black and white. I think that I wanted to give a hug to all of the siblings and do exactly that, and I think they all would have benefited from it.
Yes.
But I do think Tom, at his core, he really does think he's doing what he needs to do and he's doing what's right.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think he's doing anything, even though he does quite like he doesn't treat his siblings particularly well.
Hmm.
None of it's coming from a place of malice at all. He's
Right.
convinced that he's right. But I think that's the issue. He's always has to be right. That's where
Yep.
the trouble comes in, you know?
I do. We also have Dear Anna, the eldest daughter of the O'Leary clan. Her siblings look to her to clean, to cook, to socialize, to basically be a mother to Peggy, and they chide her for speaking to herself and being in a sour mood at times. So, she's got all of this responsibility heaped upon her. I really didn't mean that pun, but I'm going to leave it in. But she's not allowed to express herself in the ways that she wants to. She also was such a complex character. I found myself being very sympathetic and, loving her story, and then also at times being disgusted by her and being like, girl, why are you doing that? Can you tell me about finding her voice and what it was like to live in her mind for a while?
Yeah, you know what? I thought it was actually quite liberating. Once I really sunk into who Anna is and the way her mind works, she doesn't hold back at all. She doesn't have a filter, especially with her like internal monologue. There's no filter, and it was quite nice to write a woman who is really just she really is following instinct, and she's
Yeah.
following like instinctual, like primal feelings. And so for her, she's kind of disgusted by her little sister. She's like, I don't want to be a mom to you. It doesn't do anything for me. And that really makes her quite bitter. But it was something that I really enjoyed. And the things that, impassion her and the things that she really desires, she goes for it in a kind of an animalistic way. And I very much enjoyed writing a woman from that perspective, especially because she really is a woman amongst men in her house, because Peggy is so much younger. All the characters are like late 20s, where Peggy is like 10 or 11. So she really does feel like she's quite on her own. And even little things like at one point in the book, she gets her period, and that's a massive inconvenience for everyone. People are like, oh, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
People are disgusted with her for that. So, she's in an incredibly claustrophobic family. And so when she has her moments to express herself, she does it in this really unbridled way, kind of like a reaction. So yeah, it was an interesting journey to finding her voice. But once I was there, I was like, oh, I know this girl. I think she came from somewhere deep, deep, deep within me.
Can I ask you a little bit about what that process was like of actually finding it? What does it look like for you to create your character?
I think it's kind of following moods and thinking, how would this person react to this? And then, especially with a character like Anna, you say, okay, she gets annoyed. But with Anna, she gets so, so, so annoyed that her blood boils.
Yeah.
Her emotions are very extreme, whether they're positive or negative. And it was kind of finding the place where, like, okay, how heightened can I make her before she realistically would just like put her head through the wall, It was like finding that tipping point. She's very intense, and it was certainly a challenge to write someone who is so kind of intense all the time, and yet, make it readable. Because I don't think if she's operating on 100 all the time, it would be hard to read. So it's like pulling her back. Maybe her 0 was everyone else's 50%. I kind of had to like find where if that makes sense, like an emotional hierarchy. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. I really feel for her. She expresses herself in the ways that only she can. Like you said, like it's a physical reaction, because she wasn't ever really taught emotional regulation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think she doesn't really have anyone for a lot of her life. She doesn't have anyone to model herself on. She's really forced into womanhood without having any women to see, well, what is womanhood? What am I supposed to do? What is this idea of a socialized woman? This like feminine ideal. She's being forced into that, but she also doesn't know what it is. So yeah, it was complicated to write, but it was also, I think, kind of cathartic at times.
I can imagine. I also want to go back to Jack. At one point, he looks at Anna and he sees her stewing over his interest in socializing with others in their community. He thinks to himself, "It's not easy to look at your siblings and realize that you've all grown up, you've grown apart." You also had a similar sentiment in Sunburn, where you wrote things fall apart when you grow up. Can you talk to me about that strained relationship between Jack and Anna and writing about that feeling of childhood slipping away?
So Jack and Anna, they're very close in age, and I did an awful lot of background writing that didn't make it into the book, but to me, in my mind, like they were very, very close as children. And I think because of what's expected of them both as a man and a woman in rural Ireland, the way that they just naturally have progressed as people, it's disappointing to either one of them. She's disappointed in him because he's not the ideal man. He's disappointed in her because she's not the ideal woman. And an awful lot of other reasons that I can't talk about without spoiling anything. But at its core, I think they are disappointed that the other one has grown up and that they're not just that simple child that they used to be, and that their relationship isn't simple anymore. Their lives have been very, very complicated, and it's sort of like with each passing year, it becomes more complicated. And I think they're kind of annoyed at each other because for Jack, let's say, Anna represents simpler times. And yet she's not that simple person anymore, and their relationship isn't simple. So I imagine it would be heartbreaking to look at someone and think, have all these memories of what we used to be, and we just can never have that relationship anymore because of the way we feel about each other, the way that we've kind of been made to feel about each other. So yeah, it's very complicated, but I think all of the siblings do have a real love for each other. But Jack especially, he really does love his siblings, and he wants the family to remain a family and to stick together. And so I think he feels it all the more when he knows, like, well, we're not the way we used to be. We're not really brother sister anymore. We're just two adults who are still living together, you know?
Yeah, that's what I love about sibling stories, because there's no one that can get under your skin like your siblings. They know you better than anyone
Yeah.
else. And there's no one that can comfort you like your siblings and know exactly, what would make you feel better and how to bring you back to that feeling of home. But we have to talk about Anna and Betty. Betty is an older married woman living in their town who loves taking care of Peggy whenever she can. She's married to Bill, Tom's boss and mentor of sorts. And Anna becomes very attached to her. Can you tell me about writing that relationship between Anna and Betty and how you knew you wanted it to eventually become so volatile?
Yeah. Writing that relationship from Anna's perspective was a joy
Yeah.
because I think those are the moments for Anna where she experiences something like bliss. She is just so infatuated. Betty is so ethereal to her that, even little things like watching Betty walk around the garden, to her, it's like this beautiful woman is floating around the garden. Like she's just amazed by her. And so I very much enjoyed that because I was so used to very romantic writing in Sunburn, and that's where I got to kind of pull it in and really, turn Betty from just a woman in the town into this like angelic being. And then Betty is a much more feet on the ground, grounded, reality driven person. So when I was writing about Anna from her perspective, it was fun to almost do the opposite. Not that she is like disgusted by Anna, but she just sees her as a normal woman. And I think it's like a nice balance between like the really like intense language that Anna uses and then just the quite, everyday stuff that Betty uses. But also it was nice to give Anna a woman
Yeah.
to hang around with and to connect to and have someone who just understands her on this different level that her brothers really aren't understanding her anymore, like since she's grown up, where Betty seems to just intrinsically understand something about Anna, perhaps that she doesn't even understand about herself. so I could kind of feel it was like comforting to write their relationship, even as it got more and more and more intense. Anna wants to be comforted and Betty wants to comfort.
Mm.
So even as things really ramp up for them, there still is this baseline of like, you look after me, I look after you, you know. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
intense.
And it starts out like you said, so warm, and it's both maternal and it's also a friendship for Anna. And she also has other feelings that are rising to the surface that she doesn't quite know how to define. She doesn't really want to face that part of herself too much, I think. And she reminded me of Lucy in that way from Sunburn. I think they're both deeply repressed when it comes to their sexuality, when it comes to, their environment making them feel so claustrophobic, and as well as religion and societal expectations on them. Can you talk to me about writing that really tense repression and what interested you about it?
Yeah, it was one of the first ideas that I had for this book. I was very keen to look at queerness
Mm-hmm.
in an environment where queerness socially did not exist. So when I was doing my research, because like I said, I had like such fantastic access to all of this real life information, and I found it so difficult to find stories of like first-hand accounts of people saying, I was a lesbian in the 60s in Ireland and this is what it was like. It was so difficult. There was a little bit of stuff about gay men living in Dublin City, which is the capital. Like, it's so different to living in the middle of nowhere in the countryside.
Mm.
So I was like, well, there was lesbians there. No doubt in my mind there was lesbians there in the 60s, but why aren't we hearing about any of them? So I wanted to, the sentiment often also when you look at queerness in Ireland, like up to a certain point in time, was we didn't talk about it.
Mm.
It was really just, it wasn't really up for discussion. It was just like we didn't talk about it. People weren't gay because we didn't talk about it.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, what if I have this character who is gay and has absolutely no concept of what queerness is? And it becomes, like I said, just instinctual. So I think for Anna, it's not even that she's repressed, it's that she has no framework for what she's feeling. You
Yeah.
know, it's not that she's kind of thinking, where's the man who's going to come and sweep me off my feet? She's just like, why do I want to, you know, be near this woman all the time? She can't, it doesn't click for her that it's a queerness. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was like a challenge to write about desire and romance and attraction without using any of the language that you would typically use to describe those things, because obviously her mind's not going there. So Anna speaks in quite strange, and it's one of the things that makes her seem like such an intense person. But it's like, well, she doesn't really have the words to just say, "Oh, she's hot. I fancy her," whatever. So she has to use other words. But yeah, it was one of the things that I really wanted to look at with this book. Like, how does how do feelings manifest when you don't have the language for them or any framework for them, and you haven't seen them anywhere before in the media anywhere? It's like this foreign concept to her.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, it got out of hand, but I really enjoyed following that thread.
I also do want to talk a little bit about desire and how you write it. I love the way that you write about desire in your books and how it can often be pretty gross. I mean, we're gross. We're animals. So I
Yeah.
think that I love the way that you write about it, and the way that your characters experience desire. Like Lucy admires the way that Susanna chews on hamburger meat in Sunburn, or Anna wishes she could be lice living on top of Betty's head, living off of her blood. That was one of my favorite lines in the book. Can you talk to me a little bit about leaning into those gross parts of desire?
Yeah, I think for me, really, there is no line at all between what is considered like conventionally desirable, attractive, beautiful, and what is disgusting.
Mm,
If you're writing about like the object of your desire, for me, there's no like two categories. It's
Yeah.
all the same thing. And it's, truth be told, it's just more interesting for me to
Hmm.
think, okay, what is a visceral thing I could say rather than being like, she had a great body. I could say, like, what about the way that what about the dirt in her fingernails or something? There has to be something else. And I think, when you like really fancy someone as well, you pick up on random things. You might be like, oh
Hmm.
my God, the shape of their wrists or something random like that. So I just enjoy leaning into it. It was nice with Heap Earth Upon It because I could go that bit more disgusting. I don't think I could have done the lice thing in Sunburn at all. But it was nice to be that bit because of the gothic, I think, to go a bit more gross with it and still somehow make it romantic and pretty and everything. It's like it's a challenge that I enjoy.
I'm so glad that you did, because it was so fun to read, and like you said, it definitely is more interesting in that way too. Especially now knowing that you did all of that very intentionally with Anna, because she didn't have the language to really describe how she was feeling. So to
Yeah.
her, it probably wasn't weird or gross at all to think about being, lice living on Betty's head.
So normal.
I also want to talk a little bit about how religion functions in the book. I
Mhm.
bookmarked a section where Jack expresses his ongoing struggles with religion. He says, sure, what else is there to do but go down to the church, saying prayers I know by heart but don't understand, talking to a God who may or may not even be there. And he also says, if heaven is there, I'm sure it's nothing but a disappointing party full of the plainest people I know, and yet I'm doing all that I can to get there back to you. Can you talk to me about how religion functions in the novel and how it affects each of our characters?
Well, I think if you're writing about 1960s Ireland, especially rural Ireland,
Hmm.
it would be an awful challenge to not talk about religion because it
Yeah.
is so part of the culture, especially then, like such a huge part of the culture. Um, However, it was enjoyable for me to have characters who were questioning their faith at that time. I think it would be it would have been like quite controversial to be saying things like that at that time. And
Mm.
I thought, well, I've got four narrators. I can't have them all just blindly believe in God and all have the same relationship to religion because then I don't know, what's the point in talking about it if they all feel the same way?
Yeah.
And I think, especially with what they've all been through, there's a lot of tragedy in the book and they've all, lost out on a lot of things in their lives. And so things like that would make you question your faith 100%.
Hmm.
And what I enjoyed was, okay, which character is going to be brave enough to question it? Which character is too afraid? And with Jack, he's in that middle ground where he's like, this can't be real, but also I'm operating on the just in case of it all. Um, there's this little detail that I'm sure no one's going to pick up on. So I'm going to say it.
Mm.
Different characters do like capitalizations for
Yes.
God and Jesus and things like that, depending on like where they are with their faith. So some of them have like no interest and it's small letters all the time. So that's like you can kind of tell like, oh, Jack's feeling it today. He's not feeling it so much now based on like the letters. The proofreaders kept being like, what is this? This is a mess. Like you keep there's no uniformity to this. But I was like, it's on purpose. Um, but yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I think like I so leaned into it in Sunburn, like the religious imagery, and I very much enjoyed that. So I wanted to look at it in a different way because like I said, it's not like I'm beating a dead horse, but like if you're writing about Ireland in these decades, you can't pretend it wasn't there. I think
Hmm.
it is very much part of the culture. And so I just wanted to see it from like different eyes and somebody who has a different relationship to it. So it was fun. It like helps me to understand things like religion when I write about it from all these different perspectives. I'm like, okay, now I know how like four different people might feel about it. And it begins to make sense in my brain.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as readers, we learn how we feel about things like that too from the authors who, do that work. I'm so glad you brought up the capitalization of God and Jesus because it is actually something I picked up on
Oh, nice.
because
Okay.
I thought it was so clever because it really tells us so much about the characters, and it's just so cool the things that we can do with language. I
Yeah.
mean, just the capitalization of a letter can tell you so much about a character. I just think that's the coolest thing. I'd also love to talk a bit about how you structured this book and what your writing process actually looks like. We have rotating perspectives from Jack, Tom, Anna, and Betty. How did you decide who would get their own chapters, and how did you organize that in your writing process?
Well, I didn't organize it. That's the first thing. I'm so bad at organizing. And I wish I wasn't like this, but I just can't. And I haven't learned. I'm just not an organized person at all. Um, so what I did was I kind of wrote pretty much everything from everyone's perspective. And then I thought, oh, this, like, if something was from Anna's perspective, let's say, I thought this isn't actually that interesting. This doesn't work. It would be more interesting to hear what Tom has to say about this. And so there was a lot of different drafts of the story. And it became about taking, okay, a little bit from this draft, a little bit from this one, and this one, and this one, and then merging them all together. So it's like a collage almost of all of these different drafts. Um, but yeah, I mean, the process, I couldn't say I don't even know how to put the process into words because it really was just me being like, what is going on in this book? Like, I confuse myself too much. But one thing I did was every narrator was written in a different color. I always read in colors. So Betty was in purple, Anna was in pink, like this kind of dirty pink. And then Jack was green and Tom was blue. And that was very helpful for me to, like, if I saw the green, I was like, okay, now it's Jack. It really helped me to like switch straight away, you know?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't really just do a full Jack day. Maybe I'd be like, okay, Jack, then
Okay.
Betty, then Anna. And it was very, you know, very messy. But I got there.
It looks like you're getting tired thinking about it.
Honest to God. It's so funny now when people ask me, like, what was your process? I'm like, I don't remember. I just know it was confusing.
Um, Also, one thing that I really loved about how you structured it, the characters, all of the characters that we get perspectives from, save for Betty, all address their inner monologues to Lillian, a character that haunts the narrative in pretty much every way. Can you talk to me about having her kind of float between the pages and how she affects the characters?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Lillian was it kind of goes back to the perspective thing in general. I became very obsessed with the notion of perspective and experience and
Yeah.
how, like, for example, you and me are talking now, but we're having two very different conversations because we've come to this moment with such different experiences and you're asking the questions and I'm answering, you know. Although we're sharing this moment, it's very different for us both. And so I wanted to look at, that's why there are four narrators. I wanted to look at all of these different moments within the novel from different perspectives and have them all having quite opposite thoughts and experiences about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so with Lillian, they all have very different relationships to Lillian, very different opinions on her. And yet she's one person. And I think we get a much, you know, fuller picture of who she is because you get everybody else's opinion. And also it kind of points to the fact that, especially in this book, there isn't really any one truth. They all have their own, you know, they all have their own truths.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she's one of the things that's like holding the family together.
Yeah.
This intense adoration, let's say, of this person. She is kind of a glue for them in many ways, and yet we never really hear from her. Um, yeah, she adds to the mystery for sure.
It was very fun to read. They all address her in very, very different ways.
Yeah.
And it also helps us learn a lot about each character when they think about her.
I hope so.
So I have to ask you about your influences. Who are some of your favorite authors, and what are some of your favorite books?
For Heap Earth Upon It specifically, I love John B. Keane. I love him. Like even just watching videos of him on YouTube. He's a writer from Kerry, and he owned a pub in Kerry in Ireland, which is like quite a rural place. And he just was this amazing storyteller. Like there's videos of him in his pub just chatting to people, and I could just watch them forever. And he was a novelist and a playwright. And he wrote The Field, and I'm obsessed with The Field. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't.
Oh my God. There's a film version of it that's like very close to the play.
Oh wow.
Oh my God, obsessed with it. Like that real like Irish Gothic feeling, you know? Yeah, obsessed with him. And then also like around the time of writing this book, I was reading a lot of kind of by coincidence, but I was reading a lot of books about obsession. So I read My Husband by Maud Ventura, and I read, oh, it has a different name in America. It's called Creep. In the UK edition, it's called This Immaculate Body, but the US one is called Creep.
Yeah.
Excellent book. Oh my God, actually scared me so much. But it's really good, like study of obsession. So yeah, I didn't seek them out, but I was reading a lot about obsession at that time. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I feel like when people are like, who do you like? I'm like, and who else? Who else? Who else? But I'll actually leave it there because this will go on forever.
Is there anything you're reading now that you'd like to talk about or that's exciting for you? Or anything that's inspiring you at all? Doesn't just have to be books.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not that far into January. I just read Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, what an amazing book. Like, not for the faint of heart, but like, when I read it, I was like, I'm never writing again. Like, that she's done it. Like, she is the writer. No one else should be doing this. Like, it was amazing. And then we might have to edit this out, but the other book I read this year, I massively enjoyed, and I write them all down. Oh my God, I read I Who Have Never Known Men. I finally read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I always see it on TikTok and Instagram, like 10 sapphic books you have to read. There I was like, she's never known men. I bet she's known women. I thought it's going to be this like sexy romp. I was scared. I was genuinely scared for like 2 weeks after I read it. Sometimes when I'm in the house on my own, I'm still scared. It really freaked me out, but it was amazing. I didn't realize that it was even science fiction when I was going into it. I was like, what is this story? So if anyone's listening and they've been meaning to read it, you just pick it up. It's so good.
I kind of love that you went into it blind.
I'd really try to do that. I try as often as I can to not read the back of the book and just see what happens. But often then even if it's definitely not going to be a lesbian storyline, I'm sniffing it. I'm like, where are the lesbians? Even if it's like just some book that's definitely not about lesbians. As soon as there's like any woman introduced, I'm like, this could be it. But sometimes I'm right. Sometimes that does happen.
I went into the Safekeep pretty blind. I kind of knew some of the historical things, and I had it recommended to me before, but I didn't necessarily know where it was going. And that book is just incredible.
Oh my God. Literally, when I was reading it, I was even saying to my partner, because I knew there was a twist coming. I knew it. And I was like, the twist is going to be that they're lesbians. I was like, obviously and then they were lesbians, but then, wow, I was racing through it. I literally was like, it was like when your eyes are running, like I was hardly even reading the words because I was like, what's next? What's next? That was like, oh, amazing. I love that book.
And for what it's worth, I did the exact same thing with Sunburn.
That's lovely.
love that book.
Thank you.
Of course. And I am so excited to get Heap Earth Upon It into readers' hands. Chloe, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.